This was never random. Something in your life has felt different lately, like pieces are shifting, like something unseen is quietly rearranging your path. You tried to ignore it. You told yourself it was coincidence. But deep down, you know it is. Because what you're experiencing right now isn't chaos, it's alignment. And if you're hearing this, then this message found you for a reason. You were never lost. There were moments you thought you were falling apart. Moments where nothing made sense, where everything you built seemed to collapse. But what if you were never lost, just being redirected? What if every delay, every closed door, every painful ending was actually protection? Because chosen ones don't move randomly. They are guided, even when it feels like they're breaking. The invisible pattern. Look back at your life. You'll start to see it. Certain people came and left at exact moments. Opportunities appeared, then disappeared, only to lead you somewhere unexpected. It wasn't disorder, it was design. A pattern so precise, it could only be understood once you step back and see the whole picture. Why you felt different. You always sensed it, didn't you? That you don't fully belong to the noise of the world. That your mind questions things others accept blindly. That your heart feels deeper, sees further, understands beyond words. That's not a flaw. That's a sign. The weight of awakening. Awakening isn't peaceful at first. It's heavy. It forces you to unlearn everything you thought was real. It isolates you, it tests you. Because before you can rise, you must see clearly. And clarity can be uncomfortable. Why they couldn't understand you. People misread you. They called you distant, strange, too intense. But they were trying to measure you with a scale that was never meant for you. You weren't meant to fit in their expectations. You were meant to outgrow them. The silent separation. You didn't just wake up, you separated. From toxic patterns, from shallow conversations, from environments that drained your soul. It felt lonely at times. But that distance wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Everything had to break. You lost things you thought you needed. People you thought would stay forever. Versions of yourself you once believed defined you. It hurt deeply. But what's coming together now could never have existed without that breakdown. The moment things shifted, there was a moment, quiet, almost unnoticeable, when something inside you changed. You stopped chasing, you stopped forcing. You started observing, trusting, letting go. And that's when things began to align. You stopped seeking approval. You realized something powerful. Not everyone is meant to understand you. And that's okay. Because the moment you stopped needing validation, you stepped into your true power. The process you didn't see. Even when nothing seemed to move, everything was moving. Lessons were forming, strength was building. Your mindset was evolving in ways you couldn't measure. The process was silent, but it was never still. Why it felt so slow? Because real transformation isn't rushed. It's layered, it's precise. You were being shaped into someone who can carry more, handle more, see more. And that takes time. You were being protected. Some doors didn't open for you, not because you weren't worthy, but because they weren't meant for the version of you that was emerging. What you thought was rejection was actually redirection. The energy you carry now. You've changed, not just in what you do, but in who you are. You move differently, think differently, feel differently. And people notice it, even if they can't explain it. Why things are coming together now. Because you're ready. Not perfect, not finished, but aligned enough to receive what's been waiting for you. Timing isn't about the clock. It's about readiness. You stopped forcing life. You learned to trust. to let things flow instead of controlling every outcome. And that shift, that surrender, is what opened doors you didn't even know existed. The quiet confidence. You don't need to prove yourself anymore. There's a calm strength in you now, a knowing that doesn't need validation. That's growth, that's alignment. You see through ILLUSIONS. Things that once impressed you no longer do. You see beyond appearances, beyond surface-level truths. And that clarity protects you from being pulled back into what you've outgrown. Why you had to walk alone. Because some paths can't be shared. Some growth can't be witnessed. You had to become this version of yourself, without distraction, without interference. And now you understand why. You are not early or late. You are exactly where you need to be. Every step, every delay, every detour was necessary to bring you here. Right now, the final realization. It's not that life suddenly started working for you. It's that you finally aligned with what was always meant for you. That's the difference. Trust what you feel now. That quiet sense of things falling into place. That calm certainty inside you. Don't ignore it. That's your sign. This is your moment. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now. To trust, to move forward, to embrace what's unfolding. Because it is unfolding, whether you doubt it or not. Step into IT fully. Stop holding back. Stop questioning your worth. Stop shrinking to fit spaces you've already outgrown. You didn't come this far to stay where you are. Own who you are becoming. You are not who you used to be. And you're not meant to go back. This new version of you is stronger, clearer, and ready. This is only the beginning. What's coming together right now is just the foundation. There's more ahead, more growth, more purpose. And you are being prepared for all of it. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, don't ignore it. Like this video, so this message reaches others who need it. Comment below, I trust the process, to declare where you stand. And subscribe to Return to Awakening, because this is just the beginning of what you're about to understand, the part you almost missed. There were small moments you overlooked. Tiny shifts in your thinking, subtle changes in your reactions. Situations that once triggered you suddenly didn't. People who once held power over your emotions lost their grip. That wasn't random growth. That was transformation happening quietly beneath the surface. You're RESPONDING, not RESTING. Before, everything felt urgent, emotional, immediate. Now, there's space between what happens and how you respond. You observe more, you choose more carefully. That space is power. And it's something most people never develop. The old you handled this level. Be honest. If everything coming into your life now had arrived a year ago, you wouldn't have been ready. You might have sabotaged it, misunderstood it, or walked away from it. That's why timing mattered more than desire. You were being upgraded. Your mindset had to evolve. Your emotional strength had to deepen. Your awareness had to sharpen. Because what you're stepping into now requires a version of you that didn't exist before. The discomfort had a purpose. Those restless nights. Those moments of doubt where nothing felt stable. That internal pressure you couldn't explain. It wasn't there to break you. It was there to stretch you beyond your limits. You started seeing truth clearly. You began noticing things others ignore. Patterns in people's behavior. Energy behind words, intent behind actions. You stopped taking everything at face value. And that awareness changed how you move through the world. You outgrew what once felt normal. Conversations that once entertained you now feel empty. Places you once enjoyed now feel draining. You didn't become difficult. You became aware. And awareness changes everything. You no longer chase what's not yours. There was a time you tried to force connections, to hold on to things that clearly weren't aligned. But now you let things be. What stays, stays. What leaves, leaves. And that peace you feel, that's freedom. Your energy speaks before you do. People feel something different about you now. Even if you don't say much. Your presence communicates strength, clarity, and depth. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You embody it. The shift from confusion to clarity. You used to question everything, overthink every decision, doubt every instinct. But now there's a quiet clarity guiding you. Not loud, not forceful. Just steady and undeniable. You trust yourself more than ever. That inner voice you once ignored is now the one you rely on. You don't need constant reassurance anymore. Because you've learned something powerful. You can trust yourself. The right things start feeling natural. You're no longer forcing what's meant for you. Opportunities flow easier. Conversations feel more aligned. Decisions feel less complicated. Because when you're aligned, things don't feel like a constant struggle. You're no longer afraid to walk away. That fear of losing people, of being alone, it doesn't control you anymore. You understand your worth now. And you'd rather walk alone in truth than stay in something that compromises who you are. You stopped dimming your light. There was a time you held back, stayed quiet, played small, just to keep others comfortable. But not anymore. You've realized that shrinking yourself only delays your purpose. You're attracting different energy now. Notice who's entering your life now. Different conversations, different mindsets. People who challenge you, who understand you on a deeper level. That's not luck. That's alignment. You're finally seeing results internally, before anything shows up externally. It happens within. And now you feel it. That inner stability, that emotional strength, that quiet confidence that doesn't need validation. You understand patience differently now. It's no longer about waiting. It's about trusting while things unfold. You're not anxious for the future anymore. Because you've realized what's meant for you doesn't need to be rushed. You're no longer distracted by everything. Your focus is sharper now. You're not pulled in every direction. You're more intentional with your time, your energy, your attention. And that focus is creating real movement in your life. You're stepping into authenticity. You're not trying to fit into roles anymore. Not trying to meet expectations that don't align with you. You're showing up as you are. And that authenticity is what makes your presence powerful. You stopped fighting your own path. There was a time you resisted everything. You questioned why things weren't happening the way you planned. You tried to control outcomes, to force timelines, to make sense of delays. But something shifted. You stopped fighting and started allowing. The power of surrender. Not giving up, but letting go. Letting go of the need to control every detail. Letting go of the pressure to have everything figured out. And in that surrender, you found something unexpected. Peace. You realized not everything is meant to stay. Some things were only meant to pass through your life. To teach you, to shape you, to wake you up. Not everything was designed to last forever. And once you accepted that, you stopped holding on to what was already leaving. You started protecting your energy. You became more selective, more aware of what drains you and what fuels you. You no longer give your time and attention freely to everything. Because you understand now. Your energy is valuable. You're not easily shaken anymore. Things that once would have thrown you off barely move you now. Not because you don't feel, but because you've learned how to stay grounded. That stability is strength. You see SETBSKS differently now. It's not failure. It's feedback. It's redirection. You've stopped taking every obstacle personally and started seeing them as part of the path. You're learning to be present, not stuck in the past, not anxious about the future, but here now, because this moment is where your power actually exists. You no longer compare your journey. You see others moving faster, achieving more, appearing ahead. But it doesn't shake you like it used to, because you've realized something important. Their path was never yours to follow. You're building something real, not just external success, but internal strength, clarity, discipline, awareness, things no one can take from you. And that foundation will support everything else. You trust the unseen more than before. You don't need constant proof anymore. You don't need everything to make perfect sense right away. Because you've seen enough to know there's something greater at work behind the scenes. You're becoming more discerning. Not everything deserves your attention. Not every opportunity is aligned. Not every voice is worth listening to. And now you can tell the difference. You're not afraid of change anymore. In fact, you expect it. You understand that growth requires movement, that staying the same is not an option anymore. And instead of resisting change, you move with it. You've made peace with your past, not because it was easy, but because you understand it now. You see how every experience shaped you, how every moment led you here. And that understanding brings closure. You're no longer seeking escape. You're not trying to run away from your life anymore. Not numbing, not avoiding, not distracting yourself constantly. You're present, aware, grounded. And that presence is where real transformation happens. You're aligned with yourself. Your actions, your thoughts, your intentions. They're starting to match. There's less inner conflict, less confusion, more clarity, more direction. And that alignment is powerful. You're not who you were, and you can feel it in the way you think, in the way you respond, in what you tolerate and what you no longer accept. You've changed, and there's no going back. You're stepping into responsibility, not blaming others, not waiting for someone to save you, but taking full ownership of your path, your decisions, your growth. And that ownership is freedom. Your CRETNG, your own direction. Not following the crowd. Not blindly accepting what's expected of you, but choosing your path consciously, even when it's uncertain, even when it's difficult. You're stronger than you realize. You've already made it through things that once felt impossible. Moments you thought would break you, but didn't. And that strength is still within you. You're ready for what's next. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are prepared. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You've done the work. And now you're stepping forward differently. You can feel the moment approaching. There's a quiet tension in the air. Not fear, not anxiety, but anticipation. Like something is about to shift in a way you can't fully explain yet. You don't have all the answers, but you can feel that something is close. You're no longer doubting every step. Before, every move felt uncertain. You questioned yourself constantly. But now, even when things aren't clear, you still move forward. And that confidence is something you earned. You're learning to trust silence. Not everything needs to be loud to be real. Not every answer comes immediately. Sometimes the most important guidance comes in stillness. And now you're finally listening. You're not CHSING clarity, because clarity finds you when you're ready. Not when you demand it, but when you align with it. And now, instead of forcing answers, you allow them to reveal themselves. You've become comfortable with the unknown. That used to scare you. Not knowing what's next, not having control. But now you see it differently. The unknown isn't empty. It's full of possibilities you haven't stepped into yet. You're moving with intention now. Every decision more conscious. Every action more aligned. You're not just reacting to life anymore. You're choosing how you show up in it. And that changes everything. You're no longer distracted by temporary things. Short-term excitement doesn't pull you in like it used to. You see beyond quick wins and surface-level rewards. You're focused on something deeper now. Something lasting. Something meaningful. You're honoring your own pace. You're not rushing anymore. Not forcing yourself to keep up with anyone else's timeline. You understand that your journey unfolds in its own way. And that's enough. You're SDRTNG to see RESULTS in subtle ways. It's not always big or obvious, but it's there. Better decisions, healthier boundaries, clearer thinking. Small shifts that are building something much bigger. You're letting go of old identities. Versions of you that no longer fit. Labels that don't reflect who you've become. You're not holding onto the past for comfort anymore. You're stepping into who you are now. You're not afraid to be misunderstood. Because you know your truth. You know your intentions. And you've realized something powerful. Not everyone is meant to understand your journey. You're attracting what matches your growth. Things feel different now. More aligned, more natural. Because you're no longer operating from who you were, but from who you've become. You're seeing the bigger picture. It's not just about isolated moments anymore. You see how everything connects. How each experience, each challenge, played a role in shaping your path. You're trusting your instincts without hesitation. That inner voice, you don't ignore it anymore. You don't second-guess it like before. You listen, and you act. You're embracing discipline over comfort. You've realized growth isn't always comfortable. It requires consistency, effort, focus. And you're willing to do what's necessary, even when it's not easy. You're not looking back anymore. Not with regret, not with longing. You've made peace with what was. And now your focus is forward. On what's being built. You're understanding your purpose more clearly. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Through experiences, through reflection, through growth. It's becoming clearer. You're stepping into quiet leadership. Not loud, not forced, but real. People notice your presence, your mindset, your growth. Even if you don't try to lead. You influence. Your RELIZING, your journey has meaning. Nothing you went through was wasted. Every struggle, every setback, every lesson. It all had a purpose. And now you're starting to understand why. You're ready to receive what you once prayed for. Because you've grown into it. You've aligned with it. You've prepared for it, even when you didn't realize it. And now, you're no longer chasing it. You're ready for it. The signs were always there. You just didn't notice them before. The small nudges, the synchronicities. The moments that seemed random, but weren't. The universe has been signaling all along. And now, you're finally awake enough to see them. You're no longer seeking external validation. You don't need approval from anyone, not from friends, family, or society, because you've realized your worth isn't dependent on recognition. It was never about being seen. It's about being true to yourself. The challenges become lessons. Every difficulty you face, every heartbreak, every failure, becomes a teacher instead of a burden. You extract wisdom from pain, strength from struggle, and clarity from confusion. You're learning to love your own company. Alone doesn't feel lonely anymore. You've discovered the power of stillness, of reflection, of listening to your inner voice. And in that solitude, you found your greatest ally yourself. Your STRTNG to see your impact. Things you say, actions you take, energy you radiate. They ripple further than you realize. People notice even when you're quiet, even when you think no one sees. Your presence matters. You're embracing your vulnerability, not as weakness, but as courage. You let yourself feel deeply without shame. You allow the rawness of your emotions to guide you, instead of control you. You're not afraid of losing anymore. Things will come and go. People will leave. Opportunities will change. But that no longer shakes you. You've built something unshakable inside. A foundation that can weather any storm. You're realizing the power of patience. You used to rush to force outcomes. Now you wait with purpose. You allow things to align naturally. And that patience is what finally brings results that last. You're seeing through ILLUSONS. What once blinded you no longer does. You notice hidden motives, unseen patterns, and subtle energies. You're no longer deceived by appearances. And that clarity protects your path and your peace. You're embracing change with grace. You used to resist it, fight it, fear it. Now you flow with it. You adapt, you learn, you evolve. And that ability makes you unstoppable. You're walking with integrity. Your words, your actions, your thoughts, they align with your truth. You no longer compromise for comfort or for acceptance. And that integrity shapes the life you're destined for. Your RESOGNIZING, your strength, not just physical or mental, but spiritual, emotional, the kind of strength that carries you through darkness and brings light to others along the way. You're no longer controlled by fear. Fear doesn't drive you anymore. It informs you, teaches you, but doesn't stop you. You act despite fear, and that courage multiplies every step you take. You're becoming a magnet for alignment. Opportunities, people, experiences, they flow to you more naturally now, because your energy is no longer scattered. It's focused, intentional, pure. And the universe responds. Your STRTING to see your purpose in action. Everything you've endured, every choice you've made, every lesson you've absorbed, is now preparing you to step fully into the life you were meant to live. You're not alone in this journey. Even when it feels isolating, there are others walking parallel paths. Some will appear now, others later. But you're connected to a current far larger than you can yet comprehend. You're learning to receive without guilt. You don't have to prove your worth to accept blessings. You've earned them simply by persisting, by showing up, and by trusting the process. You're witnessing the fruits of patience. Things that once felt impossible now begin to materialize. Opportunities align, relationships strengthen, paths clear. And you recognize the quiet perfection of timing. You're ready to embrace your next chapter. Not hesitantly, not fearfully, but fully, because every piece of your journey Every struggle, every awakening has led you here. You're no longer afraid to stand out. Being different used to feel like a curse, like you didn't belong anywhere. Now you realize it's your power. Your uniqueness is what guides your purpose. And those who resonate will find you effortlessly. You're seeing the value of your experiences. Every heartbreak, every failure, every rejection was a lesson in disguise. You're no longer bitter. You're wiser. And that wisdom is guiding every step you take. You're embracing your inner light. You've stopped hiding it. Even when shadows surround you, you allow your light to shine. Not to prove anything, but because it's your nature. You're no longer running from truth. The truth of who you are. The truth of what you deserve. The truth of what's unfolding. You face it head on. And that courage changes everything. You're STRTING to feel the alignment internally. It's subtle at first. A sense of calm, a quiet knowing. Things that once felt heavy now feel lighter. And you realize the world is finally catching up with your energy. You're learning to let go of control. You don't need to manipulate outcomes anymore. You've seen that the universe has its own rhythm. And when you flow with it, instead of fighting it, everything comes together more beautifully than you imagined. You're no longer afraid of change, because you've been through it before and survived. You've transformed before, and you know you can do it again. Change isn't an enemy anymore. It's a sign that you're moving forward. You're seeing your true value, not measured by achievements or approval, but by your growth, your awareness, your integrity. And that value cannot be taken away by anyone. You're not bound by the past. Mistakes, regrets, failures. They no longer define you. They've shaped you. And that shaping has prepared you for what's next. You're no longer seeking permission to live, to dream, to be. You've realized the only approval you need comes from within. And that freedom is intoxicating. You're embracing your own rhythm. You no longer force life to move on anyone else's schedule. You flow at your own pace. And in that rhythm, you find clarity, peace, and power. You're seeing OPPORTUNITIS everywhere. Doors that once seemed closed are now opening. Paths that once seemed hidden are now clear, because you've grown to recognize the signs and trust them. You're growing stronger every day, not just in body or mind, but in spirit. Every challenge you face, every test you endure, adds another layer to your strength. You're no longer distracted by negativity. Opinions, judgments, criticism. They roll off you now. You're too focused, too aligned, to let external noise shake you. You're learning the power of stillness. Not doing nothing, but observing, waiting, listening. In that stillness, answers emerge. Direction becomes clear. You're embracing authentic connections. No more shallow relationships. No more empty conversations. You're drawn to those who match your energy. And those who do are naturally released. You're not afraid to claim what's yours. Opportunities, respect, love, peace. You've stopped shrinking. You reach for what aligns with your path. And in claiming it, you honor your journey. You're seeing the power of your own resilience. Every time life knocked you down, you rose again. And every rise was stronger, wiser, more centered. That resilience is unstoppable. You're ready to fully step into your destiny. Not cautiously, not partially, but fully. Every lesson, every challenge, every awakening has been preparing you for this exact moment. Your STRTING to see miracles in disguise. Things that once seemed like setbacks now reveal themselves as hidden blessings. Doors you thought were closed open in ways you didn't expect. The universe has been working quietly, and now it's showing you the proof. You're no longer afraid to stand alone. Solitude no longer feels empty. You've discovered strength in walking your path alone. And in that solitude, clarity blooms. You realize you were never truly alone. Your spirit has been your guide all along. You're learning to respond with wisdom, instead of reacting emotionally. You pause. You reflect. You choose the response that aligns with your higher self. And that discipline elevates everything around you. You're seeing the beauty in patience. Waiting no longer feels like stagnation. You understand that timing is everything. What you desire, what you're ready for, will arrive precisely when it should. And that trust brings peace. You're not SCTTLNG4 less anymore. You've grown to recognize your value. You no longer compromise for comfort, for approval, for fear of being alone. You know what you deserve, and you claim it unapologetically. You're embracing your intuition fully. That inner voice, that subtle guidance. You no longer second-guess it. You trust it. You act on it. And it's leading you exactly where you need to be. You're no longer weighted by others, EXPCTATONS. The opinions that once held power over you no longer matter. You define your life. You define your path. And that freedom fuels everything you do. You're witnessing the power of consistency. Small, deliberate steps taken daily are building momentum silently. What once felt slow is actually unstoppable growth. You're learning that persistence wins where force fails. You're seeing the truth in your EXPRINCES. Nothing was wasted. Every heartbreak, every challenge, every disappointment. Each shaped you. Each prepared you. And each brings you closer to your purpose. You're embracing your own light without apology. You no longer hide who you are. You no longer dim yourself to make others comfortable. Your energy is magnetic, and it attracts what is aligned with your path. You're learning to let go of control, not because you've given up, but because you've learned to trust the flow. You've learned that forcing life only creates resistance. And when you release control, everything falls into place naturally. Your STRTING to feel true alignment. Your mind, your heart, your spirit. They're finally moving in harmony. Your actions match your intentions. Your energy matches your desires. And that alignment is unstoppable. You're no longer living in fear. Fear used to dictate your choices. Now courage leads you. You act despite uncertainty, because you trust yourself. And in that trust, you are invincible. You're embracing the unknown with confidence. Not every path is clear. Not every outcome is certain. But you've learned that uncertainty is where growth thrives. And stepping into it fearlessly is how your purpose unfolds. You're seeing the fruits of inner work. Your emotional intelligence, your spiritual awareness, your resilience. They're all producing results. Not flashy results, but deep, meaningful, lasting impact. And that is priceless. You're ready to step into your true power. Not the power of ego, but the quiet, undeniable strength of someone aligned. Someone awakened. Someone chosen.